What's the best evidence there is supporting the claim that we have been visited by UFO or alien? Redditor 2, this is going to get buried, but aliens, definitely aliens. Astronauts, I believe that these extraterrestrial vehicles and their crews are visiting this planet from other planets which obviously are a little more technically advanced than we are here on Earth. Colonel Gordon Cooper, Mercury, and Gemini astronaut. I happen to be privileged enough to be in on the fact that we have been visited on this planet and the UFO phenomenon is real. It has been covered up by governments for quite some time now. Captain Edgar Mitchell, Apollo 14 astronaut. I've been asked about UFOs and I've said publicly I thought the UFOs were somebody else, some other civilization. Astronaut Eugene Cernan, Apollo 17 commander. Mission control, we have a UFO pacing our position. Request instructions. Astronaut Katie Coleman. I was testing a P-51 fighter in Minneapolis when I spotted this object. It looked like a saucer, a disc. About the same time, I realized that it was suddenly going away from me and there I was, running at about 300 miles per hour. I tracked it for a little way, and then all of a sudden the damn thing just took off. It pulled about a 45-degree climbing turn and accelerated and just flat disappeared. Captain Donald Slayton, Mercury astronaut. Statistically, it's a certainty there are hugely advanced civilizations, intelligence, life forms out there. I believe they're so advanced they're even doing interstellar travel. I believe it's possible they even came here. Dr. Story Musgrave, NASA astronaut. For nearly 50 years, the secrecy apparatus within the United States government has kept from the public UFO and alien contact information. We have contact with alien cultures. Astronaut Dr. Brian O'Leary. In my official status, I cannot comment on ET contact. However, personally, I can assure you, we are not alone. Charles J. Camarda PhD, NASA astronaut. NASA, CIA, Army, Air Force etc. Unknown objects are operating under intelligent control. It is imperative that we learn where UFOs come from and what their purpose is. 1. Behind the scenes, high-ranking Air Force officers are soberly concerned about the UFOs. But through official secrecy and ridicule, many citizens are led to believe that unknown flying objects are nonsense. 2. Admiral Roscoe Hillenkoetter, First Director of the CIA, 1947-1950. We had a job to do, whether right or wrong, to keep the public from getting excited. 2. Dr. J. Allen Hynek, Scientific Consultant for Air Force Project Blue Book. Of course UFOs are real, and they are interplanetary. The cumulative evidence for the existence of UFOs is quite overwhelming and I accept the fact of their existence. Air Chief Marshal Lord Hugh Dowding, commanding officer of the Royal Air Force during World War II. Let there be no doubt. Alien technology harvested from the infamous saucer crash in Roswell, NMEX, in July 1947 led directly to the development of the integrated circuit chip, laser and fiber optic technologies, particle beams, electromagnetic propulsion systems, depleted uranium projectiles, stealth capabilities, and many others. How do I know? I was in charge. I think the kids on this planet are wise to the truth, and I think we ought to give it to them. I think they deserve it. Colonel Philip Corso, former head of the Foreign Technology Desk for United States Army Research and Development, National Security Council member, Eisenhower administration. We must insist upon full access to disks recovered. For instance, in the law case the Army grabbed it and would not let us have it for cursory examination. J. Edgar Hoover, First Director of the FBI. We already have the means to travel among the stars, but these technologies are locked up in black projects and it would take an act of God to ever get them out to benefit humanity. Anything you can imagine we already know how to do. Ben Rich, former head of the Lockheed Skunk Works. This flying saucer situation is not at all imaginary or seeing too much in some natural phenomena. Something is really flying around. The phenomenon is something real and not visionary or fictitious. General Nathan Twining, U.S. Air Force, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff 1955-1958. Unidentified flying objects are entering our atmosphere at very high speeds and obviously under intelligent control. We must solve this riddle without delay. Rear Admiral Delmer Farney, USNR. The nations of the world will have to unite, for the next war will be an interplanetary war. The nations of the Earth must someday make a common front against attack by people from other planets. General Douglas MacArthur. Rocket scientists and physicists, it is my thesis that flying saucers are real and that they are spaceships from another solar system. There is no doubt in my mind that these objects are interplanetary craft of some sort. I and my colleagues are confident that they do not originate in our solar system. Dr. Herman Obert, the father of modern rocketry. I am completely convinced that UFOs have an out-of-world basis. Dr. Walter Riedel, Chief Designer and Research Director at the German Rocket Center in Peenemünde. The least improbable explanation is that these things are artificial and controlled. My opinion for some time has been that they have an extraterrestrial origin. Dr. Maurice Myuu, leading aerodynamicist and mathematical physicist. Of course it is possible that UFOs really do contain aliens as many people believe, and the government is hushing it up. I wouldn't like to comment on that. Professor Stephen Hawking. Yes, most likely they are out there, perhaps even visited, perhaps on our moon. Professor Michio Kaku. The possibility of reduced time interstellar travel either by advanced extraterrestrial civilizations at present or ourselves in the future, is not fundamentally constrained by physical principles. Dr. Harold Puthoff, Director, Institute for Advanced Studies at Austin, author of Fundamentals of Quantum Electronics. Soviet US Presidents. The phenomenon of UFOs is real. I know that there are scientific organizations which study the problem. It must be treated seriously. Soviet President Mikhail Gorbachev. I can assure you that flying saucers, given that they exist, are not constructed by any power on Earth. President Harry S. Truman. I'm not at liberty to discuss the government's knowledge of extraterrestrial UFOs at this time. I am still personally being briefed on the subject. President Richard M. Nixon. I strongly recommend that there be a committee investigation of the UFO phenomena. I think we owe it to the people to establish credibility regarding UFOs and to produce the greatest possible enlightenment on this subject. President Gerald Ford. TLDR, aliens. All credit to you Outer Worldly, whose account seems to be deleted, for compiling these. Much more here. Redditor 3, with NASA's recent announcement on finding liquid water on Mars, it could be a possibility that we are extraterrestrials. We as in life as we know it. Life may have started on Mars and then managed to find its way to Earth via asteroid or something and flourished because conditions here are much more suitable. Redditor 4, in 1997, a man called Art Bell's AM radio show Coast to Coast AM. He claimed to be an ex-Area 51 employee and claimed to be on the run from the government and aliens. He claimed they are about to triangulate on this location very soon, and in the middle of his call, the radio station lost power. About a year later he called back and claimed his previous call was a farce, but wasn't able to explain the station losing power. Something about it seems fishy to me. The fact that the station lost power as he was making the first call, after he claimed they would be triangulating on his position, is just too much of a coincidence for me. Redditor 6, there's nothing that can't be faked by a 15-year-old in a coffee shop, so it's hard to find proof. There is on video of interviews with group of very scared African school children that all saw something in the 80s and a follow-up interview with them recently. Find that it made me think. Redditor 7, I wouldn't normally consider something like this real, but my dad showed it to me. He's been repairing FLIR radar systems for about 15 years, and can't explain what this video is. Redditor 8, for me it isn't the current history of the UFO phenom, but the history. From Ezekiel's experience in the Bible to such incidents as the Nuremberg incident. The UFO phenom is regarded by those who don't know much about it to be a modern day thing, but it really isn't, it's as old as time. So, like I said, it isn't modern day sightings that make me a believer, it's historical ones. The ones that occurred during time periods when people weren't really thinking about flying machines too much. The ones who risked not only looking like a kook, but risked their lives during times when such freedoms were not allotted to be a weirdo. Also, many military personnel, astronauts, and others pilots who are trained to know their ass from a hole in the ground have come forward over the years, such as with the Disclosure Project, and the annual UFO Congress to testify as witness. These days any punk with an iPhone or a drone can fake a UFO vid, so misinformation abounds. It also should be understood that just because one is a UFO enthusiast doesn't mean we believe every bug caught on tape is from Mars, or every kid with an iPhone app is a credible witness. Discretion as well as common sense should be used. As Stanton Friedman says, the question isn't are all UFOs real? It's are all UFOs of alien origin? The answer to both is no. Project Blue Book found that most sightings are bullshit, but not all sightings could actually be explained as bullshit, leaving a small percentage unidentified and unexplained. Redditor 9, mid-1980s. A Japanese pilot had a multi-hour documented encounter with a UFO that broke off into several smaller UFOs that surrounded his plane. He was told by both Japanese and American intelligence agencies not to disclose what he saw, at risk of his entire career. He believed what he saw, and stepped forward, and never worked as a pilot again. Redditor 10, people like to write off UFOs as spy planes and other government projects. Kelly Johnson, the man behind Lockheed Skunk Works through much of the Cold War, creator of the SR-71 among other spy planes, is on record saying that he has seen a UFO. Our government came in and said no, guy who teaches us how to move through clouds, what you saw was a lenticular cloud. Dude knows clouds, he knows spy planes and was building them. If he says it was a UFO, then it was a fucking UFO. Redditor 12, the most popular press conference in the history of the National Press Club was held on the subject of UFOs. 400 retired military and corporate witnesses came forward, including 2 retired astronauts. People are convicted of murder every day on witness testimony alone. This conference consisted of literally dozens of this country's most credible citizens and their cache of documents. This subject has been kept classified for decades because its disclosure would render the fossil fuel industry obsolete overnight, as well as many of the antiquated beliefs of the world's religions. The Cold War is over, and the world is ready for this information. Many countries have opened up their files in the last few years. The US remains silent as it is the single biggest holder of the classified technology. Redditor 13, it's all NASA footage, and astronaut testimony. It's definitely the most reliable footage I've seen out there. Redditor 14, every time someone automatically equates extraterrestrial visitors with unidentified flying objects, some CIA agent gets a big bonus check. UFOs began appearing in earnest in America post-1947. We can theorize and speculate on where the military-industrial complex got the technology, but let's look at some facts. The SR-71 Blackbird is still officially the fastest plane ever made. Designed in the late 50s and built in the early 60s pre-computer designs or computer controls. The F-14 Tomcat was designed in the mid-1960s and deployed in the early 70s. It was deployed with a microprocessor to control the wing sweep that technically didn't exist until about 1974 when Intel invented it. There have been many whistleblowers who have stated that they worked on computers that would be the equivalent of a Pentium II circa 1997 in the late 60s and 70s. The CIA used the revolutionary license plate tracking system that was mounted on all of the bridges around Washington, D.C., made specifically to track diplomatic plates and figure out where, for instance, a Russian diplomat might be going. In 1980s technology that would require a very high-tech camera and a very powerful computer capable of optical character recognition of the plates. The attack helicopter Apache circa the mid-1980s was able to scan the battlefield and pick out which equipment might be enemy tanks based on their shape. Again, just imagine the computing power that would take in 1980s Atari terms. I could go on and on about technology that is evidence of a secret technology track because it even exists in the modern day. Lockheed Martin announced about a year ago that they cracked the whole fusion problem and that they would be able to deploy fusion reactors the size of SUVs. DARPA announced 6 months ago or so that they're working on prosthetics for memory. That's digitizing your memories and your consciousness. I think it's important for people to understand that in the traditional Western scientific model all scientists share their discoveries in the process of peer review. I think it's extremely naive to think that people making the most cutting-edge discoveries would do this. The government comes in and funds them and keeps that secret and uses it for itself. So back to the question of extraterrestrials. Say that you're a general and you have in your possession this amazing technology that would allow you to zoom up in the air 3,000 miles an hour and change directions at the drop of a hat. Imagine a UFO armed with nuclear missiles. It could literally invade any defense system and drop that shit right near Capitol before you even knew what happened. The question of extraterrestrials perfectly muddies the water. Because it's something that is as yet unprovable, like God or Santa Claus. You can believe in it if you want, but Redditor 15, can't believe nobody mentioned this yet. In the following video, the ex-Canadian Minister of Defense publicly opens up about extraterrestrial life forms visiting Earth or being in contact with Earth. Redditor 17, isn't it crazy to think that the UFOs that have come into contact with our world are just rebel kids from other planets, that their parents told them not to come to Earth because we're not advanced enough, and our species couldn't handle it, and they just had to swing by to see what was really up. Redditor 19, I don't think it's evidence of alien visitation, but given how violently protective they were of a weather balloon and how many people involved in space flight claim to have witnessed strange things, convinces me that America was up to something more than developing a few spy planes and rockets. Redditor 20, well, humans know that a life in other places is probable, be it is really far away, so they would have a hard time getting to Earth. See, they have no incentive to come here and abduct cows. Most UFOs are eventually explained as non-aliens. So aliens are probably not present in the solar system. Redditor 21, skeptical until I read that even if only less than 1% of UFO sightings were confirmed to be true, it would be enough to cause mass chaos and an economic collapse. Hence government cover-ups and such. Redditor 22, I'm no expert, but the Phoenix lights are pretty crazy. Redditor 23, two cases that always stood out to me, not saying they are proof positive, but interesting. The disappearance of Frederick Volenich. The Stephen Michalak encounter. Redditor 25, genuinely has to be this collection of military, Air Force, and ufologists giving a hearing to the Senate. Redditor 26, Neil deGrasse Tyson made a very interesting point about this. The word UFO means unidentified flying object, yet we associate every UFO with aliens or some sort of extraterrestrial beings, even though it's simply something we're not familiar with. Redditor 27, Japan Airlines Flight 1628, wiki here and shit-inducing sketch of one of the 3 UFOs seen during the event. TLDR, a team of experienced Japanese pilots and engineers on a cargo plane viewed 2 small and 1 large UFO for over 50 minutes. Redditor 28, I took a UFO class search for extraterrestrial life course in college, which analyzed, scientifically, the Drake equation. Of course the options were open, but the conclusion of the class was that it is indeed likely that life exists somewhere in the universe. However, the fraction that could communicate or even visit us is so minute that it likely never happened. As of late, the real item that did it in for me that most likely they have not visited us is that if craft capable of visiting us could also colonize the galaxy very easily. They would need resources which would support the need for them to colonize space. There is no current evidence that life has colonized the entire galaxy. Personally though, I want to believe. I think things like Roswell, the Battle of Los Angeles, and the book movie Fire in the Sky do their best to support the idea that we have been visited. Redditor 29, the Barney Hill hypnosis session. I mean, it may have not been aliens, but the sheer terror in his voice when he starts freaking out over the beings and whatever they did to him, so chilling. It's the same kind of sounds you hear in awful 9/11 calls or that brick through the windshield video. Also the ramshelled forest incident, with the police talking about it. Also the Phoenix lights, those were not flares. Or WTF is that flying saucer in the sky on the Mona Lisa? Redditor 30, reading people's comments here, I gotta ask, what would you people constitute as proof? If someone posted a video of a UFO like 5 feet away, everyone would say it's fake anyways, even if it's not. My point is, it seems like a tough thing to prove. Redditor 31, I have nothing really solid, it's mostly conjecture, but the Betty and Barney Hill abduction. The first recorded alien abduction. They claimed to see a star map of a then unknown star system, which when discovered a few years later, was identical to what the Hills saw. Phoenix lights, people see a large triangular object, Little video of this exists due to tech limitations. Not everyone had a high-def camera in their pocket at the time, and it seemed that the local Air Force base scrambled to drop flares to make something more easily explained rather than admit there's an unknown object flying over the city. Project Blue Book, 12,000 UFO sightings investigated, 701 sightings remain unexplained. Some of the explanations given were terrible. People seeing a physical craft was explained by you saw swamp gas or the planet Venus. Police chased an object across Ohio. Investigators said that multiple officers saw a mirage. So basically my line of thinking is that the government trying to hide something, and I doubt it's two secret military aircraft, as why would the military test an aircraft in the Northeast US or Midwest when they have an installation in Nevada with lots of security and is next to impossible for unwanted eyes to see it. Redditor 32, definitely the Rendlesham Forest incident. Redditor 34, ancient cave wall paintings depicting UFOs. Paintings of religious events with idiots of them, the baptism of Christ 1710 for one. Redditor 35, the following video, where the ex-Canadian Minister of Defense publicly opens up about extraterrestrial life forms visiting Earth or being in contact with Earth. Redditor 36, you want your mind fucked? Read Dr. Richard Dolan's UFOs and the National Security State. All of that shit is from official record. Redditor 37, the Travis Walton incident is very hard for me to deny or rationalize. Summary, a tree logger named Travis Walton was heading home from work with 6 other co-workers late at night when they came across a bright orb floating over a tree. According to the co-workers, the orb shot a beam at Travis which appeared to kill him, so they ran. They went back to that spot the next day after telling authorities what happened, and he was gone. 5 days pass and nobody had contacted him or seen him at all, until somebody finds him naked and unconscious on the side of a highway some miles off. When he was asked about what happened, he said all he could remember was waking up on some sort of metal table with 5 blurry figures looking down on him. He said he thought he was just in the hospital or something, but when his vision got better he saw what he described as short, gray figures with large black eyes and small lips. The reasons I find this story highly probable. 6 other people told the exact same story. I think 3 of them, including Walton, were interviewed several years later, and during the interview they said that a famous skepticist, I forgot his name, actually offered them several $1,000s to say the story was a hoax, but they didn't take it because they didn't want to lie. They also all admitted that they have been highly criticized, alienated, and scorned by many people, including their own family, so they didn't make it up for attention. Finally, in an episode of UFO Hunters or UFO Files, I can't remember which one, they had Walton show them the supposed abduction site and found levels of radiation noticeably higher than the surrounding land. This simple fact is pretty bizarre in itself, but there is also something else that I caught on. When they were talking to Walton about going back to the site, he seemed genuinely scared. His body language and the fact that he told them he would under no circumstances go back alone, was very strange. Note that this was 7 or so years later, so keeping up a story for that long and even remembering to fake little things like body language and behavior is just improbable to me. I asked myself what they would all stand to gain by keeping up the story for so long, and I guess the only probable reason would be attention. But all the other little details and clues are so promising I find it way too hard to deny. Redditor 39. There is a lot of shit to read, and some of the videos don't exist anymore, but at least you have a base to go search for them yourself. I am super skeptical, and would have to 100% see an alien walk out of a UFO to have no doubt in my mind. That said, I have seen an orange orb UFO once, yet that wasn't enough to convince me. Also, government officials whose job it is to investigate and interrogate UFO witnesses rings an alarm bell for me. Then again, this may be due to the nature of classified military craft countries have, and each government is trying to monitor another country's military as much as possible. I 100% believe there is intelligent life somewhere else in the universe. Whether or not it has visited us is the main question. Redditor 40, for me, the Travis Walton story is probably the most credible piece of evidence I've came across. I think everything he describes is believable, from the light travel room to the UFO hangar. Redditor 41, UFOs are just drones. Sent from other galaxies, dimensions, future time zones, etc. Sending a live intelligent being is obviously too impractical. Redditor 45, I believe it was Project Blue Book where the Air Force pointed out that nearly all UFOs have conventional explanations but not all. The Kentucky Goblin attack was convincing evidence of a supernatural attack. Redditor 46, the global presence of megalithic structures. How can anyone look at Tiahuanacu or Pumapunku and say sure, they built that no problem? Göbekli Tepe has been dated to 10,000 BC. Stone tools, no wheel, no pottery, no written language but 20-ton carved blocks. They either had help or civilization is tens of thousands of years older than the evidence currently suggests. Redditor 47, alien implants found by a late podiatrist, Dr. Roger Lair. These strange implants give off an electromagnetic fields, as detected by Gauss meters. He has extracted hundreds or thousands? From people, usually around their ankles, and doesn't know what they are, but theorized they are alien implants with some kind of purpose. Here is a video of him reporting his findings regarding an apparent recent alien abduction. Redditor 48, a lot of interesting comments on here. Not sure if someone has linked it, didn't see it, but I might be overlooking it, but our WAP has a lot of stuff related to this that you may find interesting. Redditor 49, I've seen 3 of them at the same time with my own eyes, and I watched them for a number of minutes continuously. Redditor 50, I witnessed a giant spaceship when I was 12. It was so big it changed my life. I would believe in UFOs even if that didn't happen, because of probabilities and whatnot. But now I do not believe in UFOs. I know. Since then, every crazy idea I heard, I'd take it as possible. Dragons, gnomes, fairies, people who say they have traveled in spaceships to alien planets. It's all quite possible to me. I feel kind of alone in this. It is scary to truly know the truth. What was doing that giant spaceship at 1 a.m. so close to the ground near my house? I hope I will never know.